and welcome to this week's episode of The Wilderness of Creativity. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce you to Tara Jackson, a renowned creativity coach who helps leaders unlock their creative potential by nurturing their unique gifts. Tara is also the author of 4 books in the Embodied series and the creator of the Embodied Wisdom Oracle deck of cards, which she refers to when she's talking about daily practices and setting creative intentions. In today's episode, Tara explains the role of a creativity coach, the cycles of creation, and the process of redefining leadership in creative spaces. Right, let's get to the episode. Give them a little shuffle, and then when you're ready, you can tell me to stop, and I'm just going to take the top card, and we'll see where the conversation takes us.
I love it. Okay, start.
So the card that's come up for you this morning is Stay Close to Anything That Makes You Glad to Be Alive.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I love that.
As a creative coach, what brings you joy? What makes you feel alive, Tara?
Definitely creating, just because, not for any expectations, any output, any results, just to connect with whatever wants to come through me, whatever I'm feeling, whatever I want to connect to. Just creating for the fun of it, the joy of it. Absolutely.
Because we put so much pressure on ourselves, don't we? I think, if we say that we're a creative, the expectation is that we're going to be creating these masterpieces, or we're going to be putting something out into the world for others to kind of look at and judge. But actually, you're right. I mean, we create to express how we're feeling, and it doesn't necessarily need to be for anybody else, just for us.
Exactly. And I mean, while we're on that, I think that, the definition of being a creative has been so pigeonholed as well into, being good at something that like traditional academia classes is creative, whatever that might be. Whereas we're all creative in our own ways, our expressions, even just by being alive, we create. So I think there's something in that definitely as well, just to add.
How did you channel your creativity as a child?
Oh, goodness. How didn't I is probably the question. But really, yeah. I mean, I'm super blessed. I grew up in Nairobi, Kenya, which is where I am today. And I mean, it's just immersed in nature, in color. The tropical colors are definitely, I think they would played a big part in nurturing my creativity. So I'd spend hours outside just playing amongst the trees, in the flowers, with nature, just making up stories, make believe. They were lives I created for myself in the garden, just being in nature. I'd make, cakes, I'd do paintings, I'd make things out of nature. It was just anything and everything. Make believe worlds just came to life, living here, growing up here. So creativity it was such an integral part of my daily existence in every single way. Yeah.
And did you always want to go into a career that embraced that creativity, or did you have a more linear career path as you started out?
So actually the irony of it is that I actually did do an art degree, and I came to London to do that, but I didn't want to at all. So back in the day, I'm not sure if it's the same, we had to do, UCAS to apply for a degree. So the traditional route, and I didn't do route A, which was, there was a certain deadline for that, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, even though I knew I wanted to do that, but I didn't do it. So I was left with this route B, which the only thing left for that was art that I still took as an A-level. So I ended up doing that and ended up in art college in London. Hated it. It absolutely destroyed art for me completely.
Really? Why?
Gosh, it was a twofold thing. It was partly leaving Kenya, coming to a city, complete culture shock, life change, homesickness. I spiraled a bit into depression and other things. So it was a really hard time for me. It was, lots of growth when I look back, but at the time I absolutely hated it, and that affected my art. The nature was my muse, my inspiration, and London is not very full of nature. I mean, it's beautiful, but not compared to what I was used to. And it was cold. I didn't want to go outside and find that nature. It was freezing. I couldn't do that. Wasn't good. Yeah.
How did that then lead you
Ended
on
up
to?
there.
Yeah, how did that lead you on?
So art school killed my art. I didn't do any art, anything creative in terms of drawing, which is what I had done for 15 years. I then sort of found creative outlets in cooking. That was definitely a big one, to find some sort of form of creative expression for me for the next 15 years. But I didn't want to pick up a paintbrush or draw anything. Absolutely not. Until I sort of started coming back to Kenya a bit more. I didn't come back for quite like big chunks of time. And then I started to come back and started to, get inspired again and slowly start to draw, create again, and then found myself going back into that world, including it in my work that had evolved in my own way. And it's become much more prominent now, sort of another 5-10 years later. So yeah, it
Wow.
took some time.
So, yeah, it took some
Mm.
time. And this idea of coming back to base camp, like coming back
Mm.
home.
Yeah.
And we can only really create from that place, I feel. Or is there something else in sort of finding creativity and frustration? I mean, I'm kind of exploring this idea of whether creativity is a luxury or a necessity. Do we need to be in a place where we feel safe, or do we need to be in the throes of frustration and chaos?
So it's interesting. Yeah, you're right. It's very interesting. I think both actually, because now that I think about it, writing took a big form of my creative expression during the years I was in London. I did write, I've written some books, but the first one came out in London. And I think that's where I channeled that creativity. It was a different type of channeling it. Writing came easier to me than color and painting. And so, yeah, I think absolutely it depends on the situation. And maybe, as a learning for myself and for anyone looking back, if one way of one outlet isn't working because you're frustrated or something, whatever, try something else, definitely. And it is that reminder that there are so many ways to express yourself creatively. And maybe just because one isn't working, it's dried up or it's just not there at the moment, try something different. So yeah, I absolutely think that. Yeah.
When you try different things, when you open your mind up to different channels, as you call them, and I love that, you can tap into other aspects of yourself as well, can't you? You learn so much from exploring and experimenting and not knowing.
To throw yourself into the unknown, ultimately, it can really open you up to things.
What does your role as a creativity coach consist of then? How do you work with people?
So yeah, it's a bit of a journey ultimately. And it kind of varies depending on the type, the person themselves. So often it's leaders looking to, to create something within their business. So it might be, a new offering or, an area of growth. Or just looking for some fresh energy and inspiration for their business. And so often we work by connecting, grounding them, very much about bringing them back to themselves, kind of like you talked about home base, bringing them back into their body, bringing them back to find themselves. And that can, that takes different forms of work. And then clearing blocks, for lack of a better word, is a big way to sort of reconnect them back in, let go of, the busyness, the stories them telling themselves, maybe visibility blocks, self-sabotage, all the different things that can come up on the, I guess, entrepreneurial leadership journey, helping to, move through those things and find their flow again, find themselves. And then I work by also honestly connecting them to, I guess, divine inspiration or accessing flow states or ideas that we all can do when we get quiet, when we connect to nature, connect back to ourselves and still the noise. And then these ideas drop in, these things, if you've read Big Magic, Liz Gilbert talks about, I mean, many others have spoken about, but coming back to connect to that space and finding what's aligned for their businesses, for their leadership, for them. And that can only come when you're grounded within yourself, when you're, feel whole. I mean, and obviously it's sort of like you can only have to be here, then it will work, but it helps. And then, yeah, helping them to move forward from there with ideas, inspiration. And honestly, through that process, it's about creating themselves into more of the leader they want to be in the world, how they want to show up. Because creativity asks us to slow down more than anything. And when we do that, we connect back to our truth, ourself, how we want to show up and lead, get rid of the stories of how we think it should be done, what would, competitiveness or anything else that can come up on that journey, and really, yeah, find our unique way and our creations and our way of leading in the world.
And I love that you said that creativity wants us to slow down.
There's a caveat to that I do believe, like, creation, I guess if we see it like the seasons and cycles of nature, or the feminine, the female body, ultimately, if you have a menstrual cycle, or the seasons of the earth, the moon, spring, summer, autumn, winter, traditional seasons. And creation follows a cycle, all creation does, so the idea is planted, the seeds are planted, whatever it might be, the visioning happens, spring usually. Then there's the growth, the feeding it. Maybe there's some action being taken as we move into the summer season, and that's where, fast action can happen, and it can be really quick. And then, you've got the autumn season, which could be possibly harvesting some of those ideas, maybe starting to see what they might look like. Or there could be, actually, no, let's realign that. Let's let go of some stuff. Let's see, let what needs to fall away. That's not quite right, refining. And then there's the winter, which, it can come before, but allowing things to just be, and that can often come before the spring, the deep stillness, letting things die away, letting it be peaceful, finding the spaciousness, the peace to get your inspiration for the next cycle, ultimately. And obviously, it doesn't always follow that spring, summer, autumn, winter. It can vary, and you might move from one season, like spring, summer, or, it might vary. But by sort of allowing the seasons to guide you, you do allow for those periods of rest, then productivity, and aligned action, fast aligned action, or visioning. And it's more of a cyclical, holistic process that does invite you to lean into the seasons more slowly. But it sort of unfolds in that way. Yeah, so it varies.
The unfolding, the unfurling, the unearthing, all of
It's all
those
good.
sort of adjectives that we can use to describe this creative process is just so beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Through conversations that I've been having, I'm noticing that there is that slowing down, that's really needed, the connections that you've made.
Yes. I so with you on that. Absolutely. And also there's, by honoring the seasons, we it's more regenerative as well, on it. We're looking at a holistic, perspective for the planet as a whole. We've gotten to such a cycle of grow, and none of the slowing down, the honoring the endings, the letting it, what needs to fall away. And we're constantly we need to do that to come back into harmony with this planet and her resources ultimately. So there's definitely a lot to be said for leadership, especially, all areas, but adopting that approach and not constantly being on. And I think, I'm sort of getting a bit sidetracked here, but as leaders, we've been taught that, so many have been taught to work in that way. If you're not constantly being productive or growing, then you're failing. And that is just simply not true. And we need to lead a different way where we actually do honor really honor, not, just say we're doing it, but not really honor those seasons of rest and decay, or letting things fall away, or whatever it might be. And celebrating what we've received, harvesting the connections and everything you spoke about. So there's a lot to learn and allow into our journeys from that process. Definitely.
This call for a new type of leadership. It's not about top down, it's about that collaboration that's needed, and kind of a creative approach. But that can be quite scary for leaders who are so entrenched in this way of thinking and the way of doing. And what would you say to people who are perhaps working within a hierarchical system that do see that things need to change, but they're hitting that brick wall?
Well, first of all, it's going to keep happening until you make small changes. You have to be the change ultimately. And it isn't going to be easy for those of us who are here to break that mold, to start to do things in a different way. I've done that myself, and it isn't easy. It's it's going against the norm, and you will come up against yourself and others as well. But you have to start somewhere. And it's actually seems counterintuitive. We know it's not, but by slowing down and allowing the spaciousness, you actually do come back into balance with yourself, and and are able to lead in a different way and feel grounded and sure in it as well. That it has, you can't just expect it to happen. You have to make small changes and allow that spaciousness, that grounding, that come back to your body, and learn to lead from that space. And honestly, when you do and lean into it, you'll be surprised by what happens. We think, oh my God, everything's going to fall away. I'm not going to be this amazing person or whatever. I'm not going to be productive. And it can be further from the truth. You'll find, things get easier. They flow more naturally. You have more space. You realize how you were filling it with busyness that was so unnecessary, or all the other things,
We are so distracted.
Oh my gosh, we're so distracted. So easy to fill the space.
I think I was reading the other day in Flex. It's a book that I've picked up recently, and in there it said that it takes us, for every 60 seconds of distraction, so scrolling or whatever, it takes 24 minutes to get back to whatever you were doing before that
Wow.
interruption.
Whoa.
It's a long time to come back to whatever task you were doing. So, something that I'm really aware of at the moment is screen time. Put it down.
Exactly. Imagine that 24 minutes if you took that time
Yeah.
just to be in that spaciousness, the time it takes you to come back. Ooh, I don't know. That could be really juicy to explore.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just there's so much magic comes from the spaciousness, like the flow, the productivity actually that comes from spaciousness is insane. And the same as you when it comes to the phone thing. It's so easy to want to pick it up.
It
So
is.
easy.
You offer loads of different resources and online sessions as well, don't you, to work with people?
I do. I think one-to-one is my biggest thing at the moment, just because I absolutely adore supporting people one-to-one. Just there's the depth you can go into and the tailored support, of course, that's going to always be in my heart, I think. So that's a big one. I mean, I'm writing my 5th book right now, which is called Embodied Money, which is an interesting one.
Yes, I saw that actually on your Instagram. Do you want to talk about that? What is embodied money?
My books have all been quite sort of, I guess, inspired by what guidance I get and things and come through me, and just allowing myself to be in the creative inspiration of what wants to come through me ultimately. And embodied money is no different. So it's just taking me on a different journey with money, and a level and layer of releasing things in my body around money, ancestral beliefs, root beliefs, and things, but finding a new relationship with the energy of money and our relationship with it as humans. It's still working with me and through me. It's getting closer. It's also I work very closely with the chakras in my work, and so I think there's going to be a connection into the energy centers, chakras, and how they connect into money as well. So that will be in the world hopefully within the next year at latest.
Incredible. How do the chakras play their role in your work?
If you connect it, let's say your root chakra, there's so much in there in terms of things we're holding on to, stuff that might be blocking us, past, beliefs, stories, ancestral connections, anything to do with our rooting, our grounding, our safety, our belonging on the earth, which is what that chakra is, traditionally known for. So you go, by connecting to that with money, it would be, oh my goodness, a whole, money is traditionally connected to the root chakra because it's our, our safety, our survival, our being on earth, how we, get by. And so it's bringing up a lot of different stuff that might be carried in the root chakra, from this lifetime, if you want to believe in other lifetimes, from ancestors, etc. And then so what I'm working into more is the creative power of our chakras. And money is actually ultimately a tool for creating on earth as well. So we use it to do things, to buy things, to travel, to experience, and that's creating ultimately. And so once we've done the clearing and the belief stuff, in the chakra, it's like, okay, I love tuning into the body as a source of inspiration for all creativity. And so the creative power of the root, what could that bring up with money? And so when you harness that, there could be, some real magic, some real possibility, potential. So it's really just diving into that.
I don't know. I'm imagining that once you have unpicked and understood those root stories, the narratives that you're telling yourself or that you've learned that are based in the root chakra, then ultimately you'd think that it's going to come up through the chakras to your heart, higher self, and then you're connecting to the higher power, I guess, of money and what that actually can bring you, the abundance of that.
Exactly. I mean, if you could, even if you just connect to the energy of money, just as an experiment, you
Mm.
like it already just feels different to what we have made it mean and believe on earth.
Mm.
Exactly. I think there's a lot to definitely explore, and yeah, like each of the different chakras and how it connects to money. So it's just
Mm.
playing with that and seeing what this can bring, teach, unfold, inspire, invite people into.
You've mentioned the other books as well that you've written. What are they called, and where can people find them?
Embodied, which was kind of my self-care journey, kind of finding my way back into my body after my mum died when I was a child. And then sort of self-care things, finding, I sort of completely dissociated from my body for many years because it was too painful. And then that sort of journey back. The next one is Embodied Business, which actually does go through the chakras and looks at some of the blocks that might come up on the entrepreneurial journey and sort of helping you to move through those in relation to the chakras. So that definitely gives an overview of what might come up. Embodied Creation, which is all about creating in alignment with the seasons and the cyclical nature of creativity. And then Embodied Wealth, which is creating wealth on your terms. So not just money. Money is great, part of it, but what does wealth really mean to you? Is it time with your family? Is it being in nature? Is it spaciousness? What's wealth to you? And really creating life in that way. So, and then I have a card deck, Embodied Wisdom. So, which tunes into sort of color, the chakras, and different, color psychology as well to help give guidance and little messages.
Yeah, you actually wrote those cards, didn't you? And you painted them yourself.
I did, yes.
How long did that take you?
So I actually started painting them during the pandemic as my own kind of sort of release. I was also learning a system called color mirrors at the time, which is a number of like the bottles filled with colored oils and water, which is because color can mean different things and the body has a visceral reaction to it. So I was learning this system, but couldn't access the bottles because of the pandemic. And so each bottle, which are physical bottles, I would kind of paint my response to instead. And this has actually helped me open up to my artistic side again, my painting artistic side. And each painting was for me. And then it turned